Hello, and welcome to the John Ark Show. Today, we're going to tell you some incredible stories about people losing millions of dollars. Before we begin, I want to encourage you to subscribe to our channel. It's free. We want you to like, comment, and follow us. We're going to have a lot of great celebrity interviews coming up, so make sure to click on that notification bell so that you can be notified every time we post a new episode. I'd also like to tell you about HollywoodIsCalling.com. It's a great service that allows you to purchase live calls from your favorite celebrities for just $19.95. So give it a try. HollywoodIsCalling.com. Now, let's get started. Everywhere you go these days, people are telling you that you have to get rich. How to get rich? Why aren't you rich yet? What it feels like to be rich. They're telling you about all the women that will love you if you are rich. They'll tell you about how you'll be able to buy whatever you like whenever you want it if you're rich. Your life is going to be wonderful once you get rich. There are millions of videos, movies, songs, and stories out there about getting rich, trying to get rich, and what it feels like once you are rich. But you know what you don't hear enough stories about? There aren't enough stories about losing money. I think people would learn a lot more from these cautionary tales about losing money, because there's nothing like losing money to wake you up and give you a cold splash of reality right in the face. I think losing money, whether it's a small amount or a large amount, I think it's a shockingly effective and efficient way to bring people back to reality and to make them appreciate everything so much more. So today, I'm going to tell you some stories about people losing money, lots of money. We'll tell you how it happened, what it felt like, and what the results were like after it all happened. We're not going to give you the real names of the people who lost this money because I don't want to embarrass anybody. We're just going to use fake names, but I think these lessons are something that people will learn a great deal from, and hopefully it'll prevent other people and maybe even you from losing money down the road. The first story is about a guy we'll call Joe. Joe worked really hard as a car salesman. Like most salesmen, sometimes he made decent money and sometimes there were dry spells with little money coming in. Over the years, Joe got tired and bored of sales, but he had this secret dream of starting his own business. Joe wanted to set up a company where he could sell clothes to athletes everywhere. For once in his life, he wanted to sit back and have a company where other people did all the hard work. But he never made enough money at his sales job to be able to start that company. But one day, Joe gets a call from a lawyer who tells him that his aunt has just passed away and left him $1 million. That's right, $1 million. Joe couldn't believe his luck. All his friends were telling him that he should be very conservative with his money. He should buy a home, buy a car, and put the rest in the bank for a rainy day. But Joe had another idea. This was his big chance to realize his dream. He was going to start his clothing company and he was going to do it his way. He wasn't going to take anybody's advice. This was before the internet, so Joe had decided that he was going to buy a national advertisement in Sunday papers all across America and advertise a new shirt that he was going to sell. He decided that rather than actually create the shirt and the inventory before he ran the ad, that he would just run a big ad and tell everybody about his unique and really cool new shirt, and that they would then send in their money and order a shirt from him. He would take all that money from all those orders and use it to create the shirts and then mail them out to the customers. So Joe takes $1 million out of the bank and uses it to purchase advertisements in Sunday papers all across the country to promote his new shirt. It was going to happen on one day. On one day, his ad would appear everywhere. He was positive this would make him rich. So what happens? The Sunday of the advertisement, Joe goes out and he buys several newspapers at the bookstore, and he sees his ad is out everywhere. It's out in his area. It's out in newspapers across the country, coast to coast. His ad is everywhere. He's ecstatic. He is so excited he can barely feel it. He can barely stand it. He just can't believe his luck. He's finally done it. He's realized his dream. So a few weeks go by, and what do we hear? Silence, crickets, very little activity, almost no orders come in. Joe is crushed. He can't believe this happened to him. $1 million up in smoke in one day. Most people who saw him over the next few months thought he looked white as a ghost. He was stunned. He was shocked. How could this happen to him? When his coworkers saw him back at work, they noticed something was really wrong, but he didn't tell them what was going on. Joe kept thinking about it and thinking about it, and he thought nobody deserved a little success more than him after all these years of grinding away selling these cars. And this is what happens to him. He thought the universe had forsaken him. It just wasn't fair. It took Joe years to recover from what happened. So the moral of this story is that when money comes in your way, treat it with respect, because if you don't, it may leave you. The next story is about someone we're going to call Ivanka. Ivanka was a stunning girl that life blessed with a face and a smile that caused everybody to immediately fall in love with her. The minute people saw her, they were hypnotized. She was unbelievably good looking. Everywhere she went, she would simply smile at people, and they would all smile back at her immediately. Her charm was irresistible. Life for her was effortless. Everything came so easily to her. She'd apply for a job and always get it with just a smile. She'd see a man and smile at him, and he would immediately fall in love with her. Doors would magically open for her. Everything was possible. Her life was an endless parade of green lights. One day, her wealthy husband tells her that if anything ever happens to him, she should behave very carefully with the money and use it to take care of the family, of the kids. Sure enough, a couple of years later, her husband dies of a massive heart attack. Ivanka is stunned. Nothing like this has ever happened to her. She's never been shocked by reality like this, and it is just hit her like a ton of bricks. She doesn't know what to do. After the funeral, her friends suggest that she treat herself to a vacation and travel so that she can heal from the trauma of losing her husband. So Ivanka decides to do just that. She leaves her kids with her mother for a few weeks and goes on a trip to Italy. While there, she attracts a lot of attention from men, but there's this one guy that keeps staring at her and smiling at her in a way that she just can't stop thinking about. So she decides to go out with him. His name is Angelo. The next thing you know, they're together all the time. She can't believe her luck. Angelo is so attractive and caring and really protective of her that she feels really lucky to have found him. They decide that he should come visit her in the States, which he does. She wants him to stay at her house with her so they can enjoy their time together. One day, Ivanka comes home and she notices that some of her paperwork and files are out of place, but thinks nothing of it. Now is her time to enjoy life, so she dismisses it and goes on enjoying life. Soon afterwards, she notices that someone has been on her computer, so she checks the browser history and she sees that they visited her bank website and her stockbroker's website. Quickly, she checks both sites and finds a large sum of money has been wired from her account back to Italy. These funds were wired to an Italian bank account just days before Angelo returned back to Italy. The first thing she did was to call him about it, but she couldn't get through. He wasn't answering on his WhatsApp application the way he always did before, so now she knows something is really serious. She goes to the bank and talks to them, but they said that whoever did this logged in with her username and her password, and they logged in from her computer. Ivanka hires a lawyer and a detective to track this guy down, but after 6 months of searching, they couldn't find him or the $5 million he had taken out of her account. So she hires this college kid who was a computer genius, and she gave him pictures of her boyfriend, and and she asks him if he could start searching social media sites to see if this guy's face shows up anywhere. A month later, this kid finds Angelo's picture on several dating sites, so they start to work together to track this guy down and get her money back. They decide that Ivanka should create a fake ad and start corresponding with Angelo again as a different woman under this new ID. Within days, he says he falls in love with her and wants her to come to Italy to visit him. He says he'll pay for everything. Ivanka calls the Italian police and they work together to set up a sting to catch this guy. On the day of the sting, she arranges to meet him for coffee at this really nice little Italian cafe. The police are hidden from view and waiting to spring the trap. Ivanka walks into the cafe, looks around, but her ex, Angelo, is nowhere to be seen. She waits a while, but he never comes. But guess what happens? One of the undercover cops, who was helping her set the trap, starts flirting with her and asks her out to dinner to discuss the case. She figures, why not? So a few hours later, they're having dinner, and the detective excuses himself and goes to the bathroom, but he leaves his cell phone on the table. It starts ringing. She looks at the phone number, and it's Angelo's phone number appearing on the cop's cell phone. She checks his call history, and these guys have known each other for months, long before she met her ex. They've been talking all along. She realizes this has all been one long setup after another. She quickly gets up and leaves. She comes back to the States and is overwhelmed by the enormity of what's happened. She has her lawyer contact the Italian authorities and ask them to start investigating the detective. Months go by, but nothing comes of it. One day, she's walking through the mall and her phone rings. It's the Italian authorities, and they're calling her to tell her that both Angelo and the police detective have been found dead, but still no sign of the money. They say that there appear to have been other victims just like her, and they're still investigating. Ivanka goes home and sits down and stares out the window for hours just to reflect back on everything that's happened. She decides that she has taken too much for granted in life, and that from this point forward, she's going to slow down and be much more careful with whatever good fortune comes her way. A week later, her phone rings again. She answers, and it's Angelo, her dead boyfriend. He's laughing on the phone. He's clearly still very alive and very drunk, and he's mocking her, making fun of her over the phone and thanking her for the $5 million. She pauses and says, "Do you mind if I ask you a question?" He says, "Sure, go ahead." She smiles and says, "Why did you only take 5 million? Why didn't you take the other 120 million I had in the other bank account?" There's this really long pause. And then he says, "What?" Once again, she says, "Why didn't you take the other 120 million I had in the other bank account?" He swears at her and he says, "There wasn't any 120 million in there." And she says, "Yes, there was. It was in the other account." And then she starts laughing and hangs up. There wasn't really another 120 million in the other account. It was only 7 million, and it was in another account completely unrelated to that bank. But she wanted to torture him. She said he must have called her back 100 times a day over the next few days, but she simply changed her phone number. From that point forward, whenever Ivanka met anyone new, she introduced him to all her friends to get their opinion and to see if they'd like him or found him trustworthy. And if they didn't, she would just dump him immediately. So what's the moral of this story? Once again, if the money or success comes too quickly, then you have to learn to respect it and appreciate it, or it may just disappear even faster than it appeared. So with that, I want to thank you for watching, and I want to tell you that we're going to have more great celebrity interviews and more breaking news stories coming up in the future. So we encourage you to subscribe to our free channel and click on the notification bell so you can get notified every time we post a new story. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon.